I felt incredibly compelled to make this video today because this is the exact kind of far-right nonsense that I have warned about on my channel time and again. Let me be clear, we are about to engage in far-right revisionist history of not just the punk rock band The Clash, but more broadly the punk rock movement of the 1970s, the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, so on and so forth.
Hey! I'm not son! I'm born ready to get this for you guys! I'm not son! Is there to get to everybody that fucking hates Donald Trump! Me personally, I said, fuck white power! Fuck supremacists! Fuck everybody that fucking believes in that shit!
Founder of the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes, had released a new video titled "The Clash Were Right Wing." I don't know what the difference between this YouTube edition and whatever he has behind a paywall is, and I'm not particularly interested in paying him to find out. Because I can assure you, what you are about to hear is the most nonsensical fucking garbage that I have ever heard a far-right nationalist scumbag ever say. What Gavin McInnes is trying to do in this video is establish some level of punk rock credibility. He wants you to believe that he has been through it all, he has met all of the OG rock stars, and that he is a byproduct of what made punk rock to begin with. Although that is my subjective impression of him, but I can definitely assure you that the role that he is playing here is that he is the old guard. Although I think in order to fully understand his position and not just assume what he believes, we should find a part of his opening statements that we can identify as a proper thesis to his overall claim. Let's take a look at this one.
Today is KEXP's, they started at the Clash Day, International Clash Day, and I thought I would take this opportunity to defend my childhood, my adolescence. It's becoming rewritten, history is being obliterated, and my punk past is being wokeified by a bunch of fans, and I don't like it.
Let's talk about censorship for just 1 second. I won't make this long. What you do on your YouTube channel is not my business. However, on my YouTube channel, I reclaim the word queer. I am turbo queer, and I am turbo queer because fuck you. Listen to your direct words one more time, and this will make sense.
My punk past is being wokeified by a bunch of fans, and I don't like it.
Fuck you. Exactly. Fuck you. I am unaware of any queer circles that are specifically targeting conservative punk fans and stealing their Screeching Weasel records or something. He is speaking from very vague and nostalgic terms that ring especially hollow in light of the topic in which he is engaging with. In other words, he's speaking disconnectedly about the punk rock subculture. So, my friends, I am not even going to give him the privilege of saying the F slur on my YouTube channel. I will be blocking out his use of the F slur and any other slurs that he used throughout this video. He's a hate crime absolutist crybaby. I am not the government. I am not the nation state. I am not an entity that is capable of overreaching in a censorship fashion like he is implying whenever he talks about the subject of censorship. So he is not gonna use the word faggot in my YouTube video, because I will not platform that. And my friends, he is not a faggot, rather he is a piss baby. In this next part, he highlights that he allegedly met Joe Strummer and that he allegedly had a nuanced discussion with him.
This clickbaity title, The Clash Are Right Wing, is obviously not totally true.
This is the most honest part of the whole video, just a heads up.
I knew Joe Strummer. I wouldn't call us best friends, but hung out a few times, corresponded with him. Great guy. He knew where I stood politically, and I think he liked that. His brother David was in the National Front.
He's referring to David Mellor, his brother who killed himself in 1970. At least his brother was being ideologically consistent, considering that his master did the same thing 25 years prior. What I think is really interesting is that he's trying to conflate his brother's suicide and his white nationalist involvement with the National Front with Joe Strummer's ability to understand other people's perspectives. I am going to be referencing this movie a lot because anybody who is a fan of The Clash will know that this movie does represent their politics pretty accurately. The movie does follow the Clash and all the shows that they play and into the studio. It does give a very good behind-the-scenes look at the Clash, but it also provides two other outlooks on the culture surrounding the Clash. There are several instances of the police committing brutality against kids of color. The second thing that it does is provide the outlook of the protagonist of the film, Ray, who is reactionary and very easily manipulated by his neo-Nazi friend. There is a scene with Joe Strummer and Ray having a discussion on left-wing and right-wing politics very directly, and I want to provide the audio for it with subtitles so you can see exactly what they're saying.
I don't think the Clash should be political, you know? It's like most left-wing politics, they're like real hypocrisy. It's like the Socialist Workers' Party, like they say like left wing is the truth, follow the left wing politics. So, like, I don't know, left wing is gonna fuck everybody up, you know, especially Socialist Workers, like all communist backed, like all the others are. I know how you feel like, because in Russia, it's just exactly the same as it was before they had the revolution. It's just a new load of people driving around in the black cars, and all the other people walking, just the same as before. I mean, I know what you mean, so that's what it is here, innit? But why I think the left wing is better than the right wing is because at least it's not just for the few. It's the many slaving for the few. Yeah, but I know what my idea is, like, make sure that I become one of the few. You know, what's the point of being one of the few? Yeah, at the moment there ain't, but like, what happens when we all become so-called equal, man? And someone's got to control it. And the people that control it, then they're, as you said before, man, some people are going to be riding around in the black cars. So all I want to do is make sure that I'm riding around and not fucking walking. And yeah, like, when I read about the Socialist Workers' Party, you know, it makes me more convinced that I'm like a capitalist. And like, once I have a lot of money, and I also have like a Rolls-Royce Command, and a country mansion, and like a house in Beverly Hills and everything, and like servants running around and doing what I want. I just thought about it a lot and I just think there's nothing there. You can get all the Rolls-Royces, all the dough, all the country houses, all the servants you want. I just think there's nothing at the end of that road. No human life or nothing. And that's why I just don't want to go that way. You know, that's why I think that it's all of us or none. You know, I don't see the point of getting all rich and locking yourself up in that country mansion, because sooner or later some cunt's going to come around with a shotgun and blow your head off or whatever. It's nothing there, I'm sure of it.
Say what you want about the Clash selling out the CBS and how they went commercial and how that obviously does go against their leftist principles. I consider all of those to be valid critiques of the Clash. But to assert the idea that the Clash, and by extension Joe Strummer, is ideologically right-wing, all because Joe Strummer's white supremacist brother killed himself, is an absolutely outlandish and very surface-level reading of the Clash and their honest-to-God intentions when it comes to their political outlook in their music and their activism.
His brother David was in the National Front, and he was so stigmatized, David Strummer, that he killed himself.
I was not able to find any record of David killing himself specifically because he was stigmatized for being in the National Front. That is mythology in Gavin McInnes' head. What I was able to find is an independent article that says that David was in the National Front and that he killed himself, but it doesn't conclude with the assertion that David killed himself because he was so stigmatized for being in the National Front. Gavin McInnes has either made a bold claim that he was not able to substantiate in his podcast, or he is lying to you. I don't truly know if he is telling the truth when he says he met Joe Strummer, but given what we just experienced, can we really trust his word? That he met Joe Strummer a number of times on the same level of Shane McGowan meeting up with Joe Strummer.
For the wonderful craft he will make for enough to know how the wild winds roll.
And that Joe Strummer just nodded his head in approval to all of this fucking alt-right bullshit that Gavin McInnes was just telling him in the bar over a pint? I find that to be hard to believe. I won't rule it out, but I think it's fair to say that even if he did manifest some proof that he engaged in these kinds of conversations with Joe Strummer in person, it wouldn't manifest any legitimacy to any of the racist and homophobic bullshit that he says in this video. You will also have to forgive me, because I am not going to be covering literally everything that Gavin McInnes says in this video. In this section of the video, I will give you examples to establish my point. Consider this an honorable mentions section. He opens his broadcast with The Card Sheet, a piano ballad on the London Calling album of The Clash. This is what he has to say about it.
Every time I hear that song, I just think, wow, the Brits had a good quality education. from the 100-Year War?
Yes, I'm gonna address this thing eventually. It's really fucking annoying on screen every time it shows up. I just really don't like it because of how much space it takes up on screen as he's talking about this shit.
What was that, fucking year 3? And the Crimea, fighting the Ottoman Empire? The Brits? I guess it's about the fall of, to all the men who have died with no fear in the service of the king. I guess he's talking about the death of the British Empire.
What a cringe take, because the song is called The Card Cheat.
Cheating at cards.
Meaning, we're talking about gambling here. If only he had time to tell all of the things he planned with the card up his sleeve, what would he achieve? It means nothing.
I think there's nothing at the end of that road. No human life or nothing.
To the opium dens and Baron Gin. In the Belmont chair playing violin, the gambler's face cracks into a grin as he lays down the king of spades.
I don't see the point of getting all rich and locking yourself up in that country mansion.
But the dealer just stares. There's something wrong here, he thinks. The gambler is seized and forced to his knees and shot dead.
Sooner or later, some cunt's gonna come around with a shotgun and blow your head off or whatever. It's nothing there.
Given that this is a narrative that is provided to us through the means of empires collapsing, we can argue that this song is about gambling into the idea of a nation state. Thematically, you could compare this to, and we thought that nation states were a bad idea by Propaganda.
But I also take it as like a Johnny Rebel, like all the unknown deaths. We have our heroes, we have our family, but the card cheat to me is about all the anonymous heroes that died, or the anonymous villains that died, in all the wars and cheating at cards and all the various ways we pass away.
This is a very shallow reading, and I'm beginning to wonder if he's capable of basic media literacy. Watch what happens when he brings up Mick Jones.
It's a beautiful song. It wasn't really meant to be on London Calling. It was added at the last second. No guitars, you may have noticed. And that was Mick Jones. You just stuffed it in there at the last second. That's what she said. And that's fine for your culture, your stupid fucking bands. Like the dude from Answer Me who's trans now. Go ahead, have your dumb woke politics. But don't start meddling with my past. Fat Mike from NoFX Records and his punk museum, the first thing you see when you walk in is, I don't know, some trans and some chick and a bunch of LA bands no one's heard of. That's not what it was about. Even the clash with Mick Jones, they're like, he was the only Jewish guy in the clash. What? No one saw him as a Jew. No one gave a shit, or polystyrene in X-ray specs. They go, she was the only Somalian in the set. Shut the fuck up.
The vast majority of anything that he says is just him displaying bigotry. And Gavin McInnes, I think the reason why you have a podcast and don't go to underground punk shows is because you know that if you started talking like that in the middle of people taking a smoke break in between bands, you'd get your ass beat. I'm sure you'll attract the attention of one doofus who doesn't have critical thinking skills to join the Proud Boys with you, but at the end of the day, you will not be able to integrate with the broader punk scene or even call yourself a punk for that matter. Your ideology is explicitly exclusionary, and it is once again a poor reading of the source material in which you are talking about. Mick Jones famously hated Ray from the movie Rude Boy. While it is true that Ray was Joe Strummer's friend, that was not the case with Mick Jones. And given the lyrics and the conversation that Joe Strummer had with Ray,
My idea is like, make sure that I become one of the few. What's the point of being one of the few?
it's safe to conclude that the Clash weren't writing these lyrics with the idea that there is some mythologized version of the British Empire that is long and gone. And then he starts bitching and moaning and complaining about the Beastie Boys apologizing for their past depictions in music videos.
I deeply resent it with the Beastie Boys. They go, no, License to Ill, we were playing characters. No, you weren't. It was awesome what you did. It was stupid. You had Ricky Powell, you had your own personal drug dealer. There's chicks backstage. Zoom out a bit on me. Yeah, like, you're throwing beer on them, you're putting peanut butter on their tits and stuff. You're fucking 19, 20 years old. You're not supposed to be politically correct or even smart. You should be pouring beer on everyone. There should be fucking whipped cream on tits.
I'm not sure what the issue is. The Beastie Boys practice a healthy dose of hindsight, and suddenly Gavin McInnes is crying. What the fuck does this have to do with the Clash being right-wing?
But don't go back in time and say this was a joke, this wasn't real, we were mocking you. No, I want to preserve history. Whether it's taking down Confederate statues or pretending that the Beastie Boys were kidding when they were acting like complete assholes, I don't accept that.
And there you have it, a cult leader literally exhibiting real-time cognitive dissonance before your very eyes.
There was right-wing stuff too, and you know, like I was kind of a right-wing guy later in life, and it got an eye roll. Like I used to wear a shirt that said "Speak English" with an American flag, and I had a screwdriver belt buckle, being ironic.
Ironically, a fucking loser.
Turnstile. So the Set is his new band, yeah. So Turnstile kicked out their guitarist because he was not hating ICE enough.
Yeah, and the London there, but like, what happens when we all become so-called equal, right? And someone's got to control it. And the people that control it, and they're, as you said before, like, some people are going to be riding around in the black cars. So all I want to do is make sure that I'm riding around and not fucking walking.
Turnstile kicked out their guitarist because he was not hating ICE enough.
This sounds like a job for the internet's most ruthless gatekeeper. By the way, Dan, you may want to cover this topic. Holy fuck.
That is the modern way, the woke way. It infiltrated punk. And I'm not fighting against that per se. I'm fighting against my childhood, my adolescence.
Wham, wham, wham. Mommy never held me. And at some point, Gavin McInnes legitimately tries to make the case that the anarcho-punk band Crass is anti-woke.
In fact, Crass hated the Clash, and that is why I had my tattooist, Scott Campbell, make me this out of wood, and it is a laser engraving of the lyrics to White Punks on Hope.
And he focuses on these lyrics, which, personally speaking, I don't find to be the most important part of this song, because lyrically speaking, Crass is critiquing the Clash, and the particular type of leftist that they center themselves around. But Gavin McInnes takes it a step further.
So this is an anti-Marxist song by the anarchist band Crass. Thousands of white men standing in a park. They're talking about, like, woke activists. This is back in probably 79, 1980. Objecting to racism is like a candle in the dark. Black man's got his problems and his way to deal with it, so don't fool yourself you're helping with your white liberal shit. If you care to take a closer look to the way things really stand, you'll see we're all just to the rulers of this land.
Yeah, just because you're quoting Crass doesn't make it okay to say the N-word. Jello Biafra said the N-word in Holiday in Cambodia, and he's anti-Trump. There are three ways to analyze the lyrics of this song. The Gavin McInnes way, which requires zero critical thinking, the surface level way, which requires a little bit of critical thinking, and then there's the historical analysis that will actually give context to the words that Crass are using here. Gavin McInnes wants you to believe that Crass is critiquing the Clash and their social circles because Crass is anti-woke. And it should go without saying that Crass does have a bit of an anti-communist streak. It's pretty evident even within other songs by Crass. But woke has two different meanings depending on who you ask. Gavin McInnes would argue that Crass is anti-woke because Crass is criticizing white liberals. Well, I criticize white liberals all the time on my YouTube channel, and I'm an anarchist. So does that mean I am anti-woke? No, of course not, because I have studied what the word woke means and made multiple videos on what the word woke means. In the most simplest of terms, woke means to be aware of systems and to be aware of how these systems reinforce themselves. The brilliance of Crass's lyrics is that they can say something like fight war, not wars, and anybody who sees that can recognize that Crass is talking about fighting the class war. Wars are usually waged by wealthy plutocratic scumbags.
Just the many slaving for the few.
The Clash were not anarchists, they were socialists, and while socialism is far better than capitalism, socialism does have its limitations, such as waiting for a certain state apparatus to quote-unquote wither away into a moneyless class of society. Any day now. Anarchism proposes an abolition of the state. Later in the song of White Punks for Hope, Crass cynically claims that punk was once an answer to years of crap, a way of saying no where we always say yeah, but the moment we saw a way to be free, they invented a dividing line, street credibility. The qualifying factors are politics and class. Left-wing macho street fighters willing to kick some ass. They said because of racism they'd come out into the streets. It was just a form of fascism for the socialist elite. Bigotry and blindness, a Marxist con. Another clever trick to keep us all in line. Neat little labels to keep us all apart, to keep us divided when the trouble starts. Even with its shortcomings and the fact that it didn't age too well, this song is criticizing the Clash and the punk scene from their left wing, to the left of the punk scene. Crass is calling the Clash performative by extension. And what does Gavin McInnes fucking conclude with this one?
Pogo on a Nazi. Spit upon a Jew. Vicious, mindless violence that offers nothing new. Left-wing violence, right-wing violence, all seem about the same. Bully boys at 20, just the same old game. Boring fucking politics will get us all shit. What are you talking about? And then Penny Rimbaud, who sort of grew up wealthy, upper middle class guy, with his insane vocabulary and perfect education, where, like Nick Jones, he knows all about the war in Crimea and the lance and the musket and the Roman spear, so Crass were kind of deceitful in that sense.
The Clash were cooler because they know about the war in Crimea.
Like last night, I was talking to Tom, and the cop, and he was like, I have no friends because of you.
Because nobody likes the Proud Boys.
And this guy's a fucking cop.
Oh my god, he just keeps whining.
This socialist, Marxist, fucking, Dropkick Murphys calling ICE Proud Boys and saying, fuck them all.
Yeah, I don't know if you got the memo, but punks don't like the police.
You're taking away from the nuance, and it's all left-wing propaganda.
I have been able to demonstrate a nuanced class analysis of the song White Punks for Hope by Crass, something that he was unable to do in his own reading of the song. So when he's bitching about so-called nuance from the longtime pro-union and anti-fascist punk band Dropkick Murphys, he is exhibiting to us that he is not one of us. And look, I understand that gatekeeping can be unhealthy. My band, Turf Stomp, has written a song criticizing that exact point called No Fun Allowed. But if you're going to a punk show and you're pro-ICE, that means you are in favor of weaponizing the state on the people who you are sharing a mosh pit with. You're not advocating for nuance, you're advocating for ICE being an acceptable thing to support in the punk scene. When the fuck is he gonna talk about the Clash being right-wing?
I'm doing all this is because they're wrecking teenagedom.
This guy wants you to believe that supporting ICE tear gassing a fucking school is gonna save teenagedom.
They're not like these bands that write about killing cops.
More like he's a dumb teenager going through the second half of his fucking midlife crisis. Can we finally get to the part where Gavin McInnes talks about the Clash being right-wing specifically?
So I just want to give you some examples in chronological order of the Clash being right-wing.
Finally, some proof!
Let's start with their first album, their debut eponymous album, The Clash, and the song White Riot.
I can already tell this is gonna end poorly.
There's Mick Jones the Jew. Riot, I wanna riot, riot, a riot of my own. Riot, I wanna riot, a riot of my own. I want a white riot. White people go to school to chicken eat a tribe. So this is back in the late 70s when there was a massive influx of Jamaicans. Jamaica made the mistake of demanding independence from Britain in 1969. And after 5 years they went, this sucks. The island's falling apart. Can we come home? So they said yes, and obviously when there's a big influx of any group, even if they're white Finns, you're going to have some culture shock. So there was riots on the street, and the Jamaicans, the Yardies as they called them, were fighting the cops.
Gavin McInnes, why do you think they were fighting the cops? There's an answer to this question, and it involves the Clash, interestingly enough. Can you answer this question before the end of the video?
Because I guess they were probably being douchebags.
Alright, I'm just gonna info dump. Despite what Gavin McInnes might tell you, there was a riot that did involve Jamaicans and Caribbean people, but it was not just because of some fictionalized race riot in Gavin McInnes' head. What do you think this album cover is? Where do you think the images in this album cover come from? Well, this is the Notting Hill riots of 1976. The Notting Hill Carnival is a carnival for Caribbean folks to celebrate their heritage. Police were using excessive use of force on carnival goers. The police literally escalated the situation into a riot. By the way, the Clash were straightforwardly involved in that riot. This is what I mean when I say that Gavin McInnes is trying to create revisionist history of punk rock subculture. He wants so badly for punk rock to be a white nationalist safe haven.
And Joe's take was, this is cool, these Jamaicans fighting the cops. Why don't white people do that? Why don't whites stand up for their own rights? Why don't we have a white riot? We're looking at a black riot on the news every day. How about a white riot?
Because white riot is about class struggle and solidarity with the black community from white activists. But he almost embarrassingly has to reckon with the reality that punk rock is anti-white nationalist by default.
Clickbaity title, The Clash are right wing, is obviously not totally true.
Because it's not true. Because you're lying. I can accept the reality that the Clash and its members were and probably are to some degree reactionary. I was reactionary at one point. I can still be reactionary occasionally. Everybody is capable of being reactionary. But to say that the Clash were right-wing is just revisionist history. As you can see, my patience is getting thin, and I'm dealing with very surface-level commentary from a fucking white nationalist prick. So, for the sake of my sanity, I'm gonna give Gavin McInnes one last chance to prove to me and to my audience that the Clash were right-wing. Do your worst.
And then we had the next album, I think this was on Give 'Em Enough Rope, Safe European Home. And so Jamaica was so popular in the punk scene that they would get into reggae. They had that song Bank Robber I just showed you. And he went down to Kingston, Jamaica to record. Now, I think it's very safe to go to Jamaica now. It's a fucking dangerous place. But they finally got it in their thick Rastafarian skulls that if you fuck with whites, you don't have any money. Well, I just got back and I wish I'd never leave now. He's back home in Britain. Where did you go? Who that Martian arrival at the airport? How many local dollars for a local anesthetic? The Johnny on the corner wasn't very sympathetic. I went to the place where every white face is an invitation to robbery. And I'm sitting here in my safe European home. Don't want to go back there again. I don't want to go to Jamaica again. I experienced racism as a white person.
Not only do the lyrics not say that he experienced racism as a white person, but that is not even what the song is about. The song is about culture shock, something I will guarantee you will experience if you ever go to a punk show. This is what I mean. He's just gonna do surface level reading after surface level reading, insert his own narrative into the lyrics that they didn't previously have before. People who will probably otherwise love punk music will watch his videos and will assume that the history of punk and punk rock subculture is fertile ground for white nationalist goofballs to organize. And I am so fucking sick of this motherfucker acting like his childhood is being distorted when he is on screen raping all of ours. And I know that there's gonna be some people in the comment section saying, well, just let him be. Let him have his dumb, foolish opinions on punk rock subculture. But I won't fucking do that. I am not a pushover like most Americans are. When you see ICE agents gunning down innocent civilians, the punk rock inner child that I have in my soul is screaming at me to tell them to fucking shove it. Gavin McInnes is advocating for three main things: the abolition of critical thinking, anti-intellectualism, and dick-sucking the police state. I don't believe that he is a bootlicker. I think that he is a dick sucker to the nation state. He is a dick sucker to ICE. He is a dick sucker to Donald Trump, you know, Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. And that's all he amounts to at the end of the day. Just a worthless Peckerwood fuck. A worthless Peckerwood fuck in a punk rock costume. And I want to part with just some choice words here to the punk scene. Let's not be anti-political anymore. Let's actually get political, specifically to piss off people like Gavin McInnes. And look, I know that I'm being a little too hard on Gavin McInnes. I mean, he is just the founder of the Proud Boys.
Proud Boys are fucking incellular, fucking incestuous waste of existence. If we're gonna have, like, these people spreading so much fucking hate, we can't have that. Like, it's just, that's the whole thing. We can't have people spreading hate. But they're just like, oh, well, you know, you can't legislate love. And I'm just like, well, you know what? The law doesn't fucking reflect morality in the first place. It never did. You expect me to, you know, agree with you know, fucking libertarians who also, you know, just happen to believe that, you know, we can have some fucking, you know, child labor in, you know, the free market. No, I ain't gonna fucking fall for that bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
But in a very real and human way, I can relate to his pleas for the rebirth of a childhood that I no longer have in true, authentic form. And I don't think I'm out of line in saying that that is a very universal feeling that most humans with emotions tend to experience. So I'm not discounting Gavin McInnes for having these very real emotions, especially in relation to the punk rock subculture. But what I will not accept is his revisionist history, and the weaponization of that revisionist history to spell a narrative for his own political agenda. While Gavin McInnes is grappling with the fact that one of his favorite musicians of all time, Mick Jones, is Jewish, he says something that I think is the most revealing about his entire ideology and his outlook on the punk rock world.
And I thought I would take this opportunity to defend my childhood, my adolescence. It's becoming rewritten. History is being obliterated.
One more time, just in case you missed it.
My adolescence. It's becoming rewritten. History is being obliterated.
For somebody like Gavin McInnes to be talking about The Clash, more specifically Joe Strummer, in the way that he is talking about is something that I find incredibly unbelievable when you actually know a damn thing about who Joe Strummer was. One of Joe Strummer's most famous quotes is, "The future is unwritten." No matter how you feel about The Clash and their politics, one cannot deny that The Clash is a band that advocated for social justice, a principle in which Gavin McInnes is explicitly against. In fact, it's what draws people to them, is that they're so outspoken, yet they have such kick-ass music. Of course there is some nuance like Gavin McInnes is implying, but that nuance is more along the lines of whether or not The Clash is even punk to begin with. And there are a lot of arguments for and against that point, but I'm not going to give air to that in this video. What I'm here to say is that The Clash is not right-wing. Just definitively not so. And it doesn't matter how much emotion you put into your statement that they are right-wing, but you are living in a different universe. A universe in which is not based in reality. And of course people are going to be listening to music that's not punk rock in your day. I mean, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of hyperpop music myself, but I accept that that is what this generation is listening to. And honestly, it's not that bad. And even within the punk rock world, it's flourishing in innovation of its own musical genre because of the fact that it is so diverse in community and culture. I think my favorite part of this whole video that I just reviewed is the part where Gavin McInnes acts like Joe Strummer and Paul were jealous of the Jamaicans who were fighting the cops because they looked cool.
And Joe's take was, this is cool, these Jamaicans fighting the cops. Why don't white people do that? Why don't whites stand up for their own rights? Why don't we have a white riot? We're looking at a black riot on the news every day. How about a white riot?
We're looking at a white supremacist who is jealous of anti-colonial resistance. Not even mentioning the fact that there are plenty of American labor unions who have fought against the Pinkertons, the police, the capitalist system for over 100 years before The Clash even showed up in Britain. Not even gonna mention the Rainbow Coalition or else Gavin McInnes' head is gonna explode. But you could just tell that he's so warped into this culture war bullshit and he's just so disconnected to anything that punks even care about in the first place. And that's because this is a costume to him and he's trying to make it into some white supremacist culture. But he's not gonna succeed because punks are too smart for that, even though punks can be dumb sometimes. I think in a lot of ways when The Clash lost their punk rock roots, they inadvertently became a very corporatized and commercialized product to sell, quite frankly. But I think that even if we can agree that The Clash's direction overall didn't pay off in hindsight with the production of the album Cut the Crap and all of the consequences that led up to that album, it's fair to say that London Calling would not have been made had it not been for that evolutionary process throughout The Clash's musical career. And thus, they sold out, tragically leading to the death of the band itself. Personally, I am not a fan of Green Day, but if you take off the rose-tinted glasses or your biases, you can acknowledge that they went through a very similar process of selling out. The only difference is that Green Day is still playing music to this very day. While I was making this video, Green Day performed at the halftime show at the Super Bowl of 2026. Along with Bad Bunny, they made the world record for the most viewership in any Super Bowl halftime show in history. Meanwhile, you have Kid Rock, who put more work into the pyrotechnics than he did to memorizing the lyrics to his own fucking songs.
I just got a real straightforward question for you. So this is what you wanted. This is really what you want to brag about. A 55-year-old man bouncing around on stage in jorts like a damn coke addict, lip-syncing badly, horribly, to his old hits. He ain't even trying.
Because that is the kind of ideology that Gavin McInnes is trying to instill into his audience's head. That you should devoid yourself of critical thinking and to never think for yourself, just accept whatever the fuck this half-bred wants you to think. Because at the end of the day, to Gavin McInnes, this is just a costume. This is not about punk rock subculture. This is about wearing a costume and trying to look cool in front of your worthless incel audience. Fuck Gavin McInnes, fuck the Proud Boys, fuck ICE, fuck the US Empire, fuck the capitalist system, and most importantly, fuck your white nationalist bullshit. Thank you.